Core family, welcome back to another episode of the Charlie 1 podcast. Now in this episode, I'm going to be talking to someone I've known for, well over 10 years now. Former Royal Marine, Jim Morris. Jim is now the Transition Support Officer for RMA, the Romneys Charity. I'm not going to explain what it is he does because that's what we talked about. So go grab a wet, hunker down for the next 30 to 35 minutes and learn a little bit about what it is that Jim does and how he helps and supports members of the core family. All right, Jim. First of all, thank you for giving up your time to be a guest on the podcast this morning, and welcome to the podcast. Now, what I wanted to do is, the idea behind this is I wanted to interview various members of staff at the charity and at the association and help to get the word out there about what it is that they do in their specific job roles, because I think there's a lot that goes on in the charity and in the association behind the scenes that not a lot of people know about, and I think that your job specifically is one of those roles. So first of all, to give the whole episode today a bit of context, give people a bit of background, I thought it'd be interesting if we rewound the clock a little bit and talked about your career, when you joined the Corps, what you did in the Corps, that kind of stuff, transitioning through to a period where we first met, and then transitioning through to leaving the Corps and doing what it is that you do now. If that's okay with you?
Yeah, that's great, Mark, but it will be winding the clock back quite a long way. So I did join in October the 18th, 1977, when I turned up at Lympstone, and that's when it all started. I was 17 and 2 months old. Passed out with the same troop, 110 troop. I think there's been about 3 different 110 troops since then.
So now, yeah.
I've never been back for one of the reunions. Our troop was we weren't that close, to be honest. There's only one guy I ever sort of kept in touch with, so it's just strange. A lot of guys do keep in touch with their troop mates, but we didn't. We all went different ways. So I joined 42 at 17. They were training to go to on Banner to South Armagh, and did the training with them, but I wasn't old enough to deploy to the province until I was 18. So on my 18th birthday, which was in the August, I we didn't fly out. We got a ferry, me and 3 other guys, go straight out to South Armagh, and I went down to Forkhill, and I was going back to Old Company, who I joined from training, and took the place of a guy who'd been blown up. Actually, a car bomb had gone off in Forkhill, and Corporal Dusty Miller sadly died, and Marine Hayes Davis, who was his radio operator, got injured, and he did the full contact report whilst being injured, lying on his back. I took HD's place and finished the tour with Old Company. After that, then I did the usual Norways and stuff with the unit, and then I went on HMS Endurance, had a great time on there, saw some fantastic places, and I look back over my career, I did some fantastic fun things. There was a lot of fun in them days in the Corps. I'm not sure if it is so much now, but I did enjoy my time as a young Marine. Spent time in 40 Commando in a rifle company. I was quite proud to say I've served every rank from Marine to Sergeant Major in a rifle company, from 42 and 40. So
that's pretty unique.
Yeah, it's quite. Not many people can say that. A lot of people have had jobs in HQ and gone off to logs and things like that, but I always managed to stay in the rifle companies, and mainly because my SQ, I'd become an ML after my juniors and the Falklands. After the Falklands, the reason I wanted to be an ML was the MLs in my company down south were the best in the field, I thought, and everyone looked up to them. They never looked cold, they never looked tired, they were always smiling in the face of adversity, as we say, and it encouraged me to think I want to be like one of them. And I did my MLs course after my second Ireland tour, and it's the famous one, the branch call it the TV2s, but it's the one that was behind the lines.
Yes, I remember that.
So my colleague Pam has been sadly putting it on YouTube over the last couple of weeks and calling me in to try and, she couldn't recognise the young Jim Morris, but once she saw the guy with the hair and the tash, she realised who it was.
Wow.
So I did that, did my time in different various, the units, did seniors, became a TQ in K Company, ended up staying in K Company for quite a long time, did the TQ job, then went on to the Sergeant Major's job there in K Company, which was an ML PID for the MLWO2. So I was Company Sergeant Major for K Company, and probably my best time in the Corps. That and being a troop sergeant was probably my best times. I really enjoyed that, get to know the guys. Always thought it's good to know your men, and the guys in K Company knew every one of them inside out, and I've carried that sort of way I do my business onto what I'm doing now, and I like to know the ins and outs of everything. So sometimes the lads might think, what the f*** do you want to know? Or, would you want to know that? But it's all part of knowing the guys and how to work with them.
Gotcha.
I went outside in 2000, became a builder for a bit. Family had a building business, and that was going fine. But we were based in South Wales, building houses on land we bought. We bought land, built a house on it, and sold it. So it was a small family business which was doing quite nicely. But I decided to move back to Plymouth because one of my sons, who was with my first wife, was getting himself in a bit of bother. So I moved back to support him, and he came to live with me and my new wife by then. He ended up going to college, and he's doing fine now. But while I was there, I worked for another company in Devon who used to do building work, insurance work, minor contracts, and I was the area manager for that, and I had a team of about a dozen builders that we covered the whole of Devon. So we'd be travelling around doing all the health and safety, price the jobs, stuff like that. But while I was doing that, I met an old pal of mine who I'd known from being a Marine. I'd been his section commander. Then I was his troop sergeant when he was the troop commander, because he got Corps commission. A guy called Cy Fuller. I met him in the Drake Circus one Christmas, and we ended up chatting, asking what you're doing now, conversation. And he told me he was the CDO, Corps Drafting Officer, and we sort of passed Merry Christmas sort of chats, and my parting remark to him was, if you know any good jobs for any crusty old Sergeant Majors, let me know. And then a week later he phoned me up and said, have you heard of Hasler Company? And I said, no, I've never heard of that, what's that? And he said, well, I think it would suit you, do you fancy going for an interview? So I went for an interview, I got the job, and I was at Hasler Company, the Sergeant Major, for 8 years, and that's where I first met Mark. Mark was one of the first guys in Hasler.
Yeah, it was different, so different now, isn't it? When we first met there, it was me, you, Ben McBean, the OC, and just a TV room, wasn't it? Your office, the boss's office, and a TV room. It's a million miles away from that now.
It has expanded massively and evolved over the years to probably, at its peak, the best rehab and recovery place for any serviceman to go, not just Royal Marines, but it was made like that by employing Royal Marines to look after Royal Marines, and that was our ethos, Royal looking after Royal, and it really worked. It's it was born out of the combat years in Afghanistan, so that, sadly lots of guys had to go to Hasler Company, but they went there and they did get the best recovery pathway, whether it was helping them to recover from their injuries as best they can, but also to get them a new life, a new career, something to focus on, whether it was through sport and ambition and challenging activities, or just running their own businesses and just being successful in their own right. And loads of Mark's testament to that for the type of guys that went through there. I'm very proud to have known these guys, and I still keep in touch with all of them today.
Do you know what I found one of the best things about Hasler Company is, so between my time at Headley Corps, I think at the same time I was doing a graduated return to work programme at 4-2 in the pay office while lads were deployed in Herrick 9. People would ask me what unit I belonged to, and obviously by the time when I joined 40, pre-deployment training, deployed, got injured, went to Headley, everyone had come back, and we worked 2.5-3 years, everyone's gone, and I didn't know what to actually tell them. I'm like, well, I'm kind of at 4-2 at the minute, but my rehab's at Headley Court, but when I deployed I was at 40, I didn't know what to say. And then Hasler Company came along, which was very convenient for me being in Plymouth, and it's where I live. But then I had that sense of belonging, and I said, I'm a rank from Hasler Company. Jim Morris is my Sergeant Major. Pete Curtis is my OC. This is where I belong. And then, started doing the retraining and getting my head together for eventually leaving, and it was so beneficial because I just felt lost before that came along, and all the help that you gave me and everyone there. So, although I had nothing to do with the setup of that place at all, but I still feel very proud that it was a Royal Marines initiative. It's obviously, it's tri-service now, but again, the core, seeing that need, filling that need, leading the way, and just helping the lads. It's helped countless numbers of people, since. And I think a lot of people like you came back into the Corps, didn't they, to fill the staff roles? Yeah,
the staff at the time were nearly all HRS contracts, and some of us transferred to a tailored career, which Phil Joyce, who was SO1 recovery at the time, I think he made that up so he could keep us there for a long time. And I did 8 years on that tailored career. It was fantastic. But what Mark was saying about having somewhere that you belong to, and that's what a lot of the guys missed. A lot of the guys, when they were injured, were just sent home for long periods of time, go to Headley Court and go home, and they didn't feel part of things anymore, lost touch with their mates and what's going on in the Corps. So we brought them back in. There was a structured training programme for rehab in the morning, and education and retraining stuff in the afternoons, and interest stuff, loads of interest stuff and loads of sport. And in them days, I think we had the Royal Marines Charity on speed dial for cash, because money was no object for anything, and it's obviously tightened up and changed now, and it's all done very process driven. But at the time, we needed it. We needed money for certain things, and we got it really quick. And I used to do briefs to other units, and one of the things I used to sort of compare Hasler Company to like a big snowball rolling down a mountain, and it was getting bigger and bigger, bits falling off and smashing into things, and Royal just making things happen, and that's how it worked. The Army at the time was setting up their recovery centres, but they didn't really do much until they got everything written down on paper. We had no book, we had no pamphlet to follow. There was BR3, chapter 33, there, listen to me, I can still remember that. That was our Bible, and that was about 3 pages in the BR3. The Army, when they finally wrote theirs, Agai 99 they called that, and it was a great big massive document, thousands of pages, but they did tell them everything how to do it. But Royal being Royal, we just had the flexibility, and our OC had the flexibility to make decisions to suit the guys, and we could get around most things that way, legally, of course.
Now, you 8 years you said you did at Hasler Company, and you were honoured for the hard work you did there. You got the MBE back in... I was on the New Year's Honours list in 2013 and received it in 2014, but I always say to everyone, that was a company honour, the great work that the whole team were doing. I was the lucky guy who got the MBE, and I'm very proud to have that, and it was a lovely day going with my mum and my wife and my son, who was also a serving Royal Marine at the time, to get that honour. And the Queen, Her Majesty, gave me the MBE, and I was very proud to see her and speak to her about it. But it was a proud thing to have, but it was also something for the company, that showing that what we were doing for the guys, and we, our phones were never turned off. Our phones were by our beds. If the phone rang at 5 o'clock in the morning, we'd answer it and action whatever that guy needed at the time. And it was exciting. That snowball was rolling all the time. Yeah, I remember it all. I remember, and what you said is right. If we need anything, we pick up the phone, we ring, and we knew it was taken care of. And that was massively reassuring from my point of view and my family's point of view. With everything that you're going through at the time, to feel that you can do that, and you probably can't comprehend it the way I'm trying to explain it, but it's one of those things that is kind of intangible. It made such a difference to us as what do you call them, patients or casualties?
Well, that's we used to call you guys your assigned ranks. The doctors called you the patients, but we thought, no, they're not patients, they're bootnecks. Yeah. There are assigned ranks where they're assigned to Yankee Company, K Company, or the Hasler Company, you're just assigned to us.
And even little things like that, again, from a assigned ranks perspective, makes a difference, rather than being pigeonholed as called a patient. The way it makes you feel, you know, and that was a big thing about Hasler Companies, where it made you feel not only that you belonged, but that you weren't, you know, thrown on the scrap heap effectively, that you were still productive and active, you were still a bootneck, and, you know, things had just changed, and we were just figuring it out until we transitioned and started a new adventure. So, 8 years at Hasler Company, MBE, to hold 22 years in the Corps before that, the entire time?
23
years.
If you want to be picky.
So
did a year's girl time.
23 years in the Corps, 8 years in Hasler Company. What happened next then?
Okay, well, as you can imagine, working at Hasler Company, we worked very closely with the Romneys Charity, and we identified very early on that when guys were leaving, there was a bit of a gap. It was like walking off the edge of a cliff from leaving the Corps with all that support, especially in the recovery pathway with Hasler and the recovery troops in the units, that there's so much there on offer for the guys. But when they left, if they didn't come back and ask, you know, about certain aspects of help that they might need, then they'd forget about it and they'd get forgotten about. So my role was set up to fill that gap. So as a guy leaves, whether it's medical discharge, whether they fail a drugs test, a CDT, whether they go out on an admin discharge for being on the warning system, and for whatever reason, we'll support them, because they are, at the end of the day, they're Royal Marines, and if they got in trouble, tough. If they're hurt, we'll look after them. If they messed up, we'll look after them if they need it. So that gap was filled, and my role then is to fill that gap by being the interlink between the guy leaving, the guys already out there that have left who might pop up years later who are having issues, and they're a hard group to track. There's a lot of guys will put the notice in after doing, you know, several tours back to back, and they've had a tough time of it. They've seen mates get hurt and killed, and they just think, I've had enough, and off they go. Well, then years later, they're the ones that we read about in the papers. So tracking them's hard, and I do rely on social media, and thanks for Mark for letting me do this, things like this, to get the word out there that we're out there. To any Royal Marine who needs help can get in touch with me or anyone else in the charity, and it will get, if they need help, we'll be able to sort them out and get them back on the right track. So yeah. And
your official, the title is Transition Support Officer.
Yeah, it's Transition Support Officer. Transition's a massive topic all in its own. So there's a transition section at Limson who do the employment and education, but I do a bit of everything. I've got the best job, I think, because I link the guys to everything the charity does, whether it's from mental health provision with the NHS and privately, whether it's finding them a job, re-educating them, getting them into university, finding out how they're going to pay their university fees. We've got guys who are in university using their enhanced learning credits, and they didn't know how they could do that or if they could do that. We've got a guy in university who ran out his LCAS. He timed out because he couldn't face going to do anything. He was so ill. Eventually he recovered enough to get into university, but his enhanced learning credits are timed out. So we've fought the case with the help from the education officer at 30 Commando, and they're going to reinstate his LCAS. That's fantastic. So from adaptations to properties to buying bits of kit and another fun part of my job is getting the guys on trips. There's loads of opportunities for bootnecks. People want to help bootnecks, and they want to send them skiing, they want to take them mountain biking, they want to challenge them at sport in various things from Israel to America and the Invictus Games and all sorts of stuff like that. And part of my role is to let the guys know about these things that are going on. And this year alone, I've had guys go to skiing in Bulgaria, skiing in Chamonix. They're going to Israel, albeit with hopefully because of the virus. But these things are all planned. Tickets for Army Navy.
My family are going to Jersey when we called you the other week.
Jersey, brilliant. Yeah, got links with Holidays for Heroes Jersey, another small charity who love Royal Marines, and if anyone wants to go to that, they can fill a form in and I can sponsor them. And usually if there's the Royal Marine sponsor on it, as Richard Woodhouse, who the bloke who set the charity up in Jersey, says he never refuses a Royal Marine, so watch that space. there's tons of stuff out there, challenging activities for guys. Royal Marines from Hasler went to the Rio Olympics. From a little company, less than 100 people, 5 went to Rio. There was Phil Eaglesham, air rifle shooting, representing Ireland. Joe Townsend, representing GB, he lives in Eastbourne, doing triathlon. JJ Chalmers was doing the TV anchorman stuff, and he's still doing it now, brilliant. Mo Morris was out there as Phil's assistant. And this year's, if it happens, the Tokyo Olympics, Phil Eagleham's going again, and Joe Townsend's qualified to go again. Joe Townsend is the Commonwealth Games gold medalist.
He's an animal.
Yeah,
right,
he is a beast.
Animal.
And early days in Hasler, he's changed so much and achieved so much. Hopefully he'll get a gold in Tokyo, write a book, and we'll all be able to read about him.
And Joe's a great example as well, because he found quite early on what he was passionate about post-injury, because he was injured, I think, 8 or 9 weeks after I was, so we met very early on. And he found that passion almost instantly and just put everything he had into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's I'm not going to say it's a problem, but I think that's where a lot of people struggle through this transition phase, is they've been a bootneck and they either wanted to do that for however long, but through injury, illness, whatever, can't do it, or they've decided to leave. And then when they leave, they realise how much they miss the lads, the culture, the life, the lifestyle, and I think some of them maybe take it for granted a little bit, and they don't know what they're passionate about moving forward, and that's where I think they struggle. So, I mean, that's why I love to do this stuff, to get those stories out. I've spoke to a bunch of other guys in a different context, Lee Spencer, for example, about his rows and all that kind of stuff, because I want to spread those stories and reach out to other people, and they'll see guys that have been successful, and hopefully then that will encourage them to find their passion, and to do what it is that they love doing. And this is why, being here now, why talking to you is so important, is to get the message out about what you do. Yeah. Because and you do this all on your own at the moment. I know there's things in place to get a.
Yeah, we're looking at recruiting a guy for Scotland and the north of England, but that's on hold at the moment. We probably have someone by next year. Because at the moment my remit is the whole of the UK and Northern Ireland, and it is the UK, but the whole, and guys, I even have guys on the books that live in Fiji, South Africa, France, all over the place, and we don't go and visit them, more's a pity, but we do keep in touch with them, and we can do all sorts of stuff, but with our IT stuff, and support them, from a distance. So the core has long arms, the charity definitely has.
And so just quickly, before we wrap up, just to kind of summarise it all, maybe an example. So the people you work with are either transitioning out of the Corps, or they're already out. Yeah. No matter how long. It's
guys who, the guys I support are what we class as, and you might not like the name, but it's vulnerable service leavers. So if they're medically discharged, admin discharge, or guys that have sadly failed a drug test, we will support them. But also the guys that are already out there that may end up vulnerable, guys that have done their time in the Corps, or whether it's a couple of years or a full career, things happen and they get into a position where they need help, and we support them as well, whether it's with jobs, education, mental health provision, alcohol, education, you name it, we can do it. And if we don't do it within the charity, I have contacts, and we all have contacts that we can link people to. So we want every Royal Marine, serving or non-serving, when they need help, make the Royal Marines Charity, the RMA, the Royal Marines Charity, the first point of call. And if it's me, fantastic. If it's one of the other guys, just as good.
And that's it, because we'll wrap up in a second. But just one of the things I've noticed in since I've been outside for 10 years now, is a lot of people don't know what you've just said there. It's in mental health, sport, respite, courses, finances. Guys are available to that are available to lads, and a lot of them just don't know who to pick up the phone and to call.
Well, one of the big things that people don't know, if you're medically discharged or a vulnerable service leaver, the charity will top up your resettlement training. If You won't have to put your hand in your own pocket to top a course up if you can't afford it. We will help you do that, and that's fantastic. It's not for the PVR guys, but that's their choice. But for anyone who's a vulnerable leaver, we will support you.
So lads, members of the core family, anyone that's listening, I think that the takeaway message from this is, if you're listening to this and you need any kind of help, or you are a family member or a friend of an ex-bootneck or anyone in the core family that potentially needs any kind of help, pick up the phone. Call RMA, the Romneys Charity, speak to someone in the office. It's highly likely that you'll get diverted to Jim and come under Jim's wing. But pick the phone up. Jim just hit the nail on the head just now. You know, the RMA, the Romneys Charity, is the first port of call for anyone in the core family that needs any kind of help. So I think that's a good place to finish. That's the key message.
The website's good as well. There's a simple need help tab on there, which gives you basic instructions, and someone will get in touch with you really quick through that as well.
And are you happy if I put all your contact information?
Yes, all my contact details are there for anybody, anytime.
And when I post this up on the various podcast platforms, social media, I will put Jim's email address and his work number in there. Just let people know. We need to spread the word with this, to let people know, because Jim said it at the beginning, the hardest thing to do is to track people down. So if you know anyone that needs help, if you need help, spread the word, tag people, share this podcast, share this post, share the contact information, do whatever it is that you can. That's why we're here. We exist and we live to help members of the core family that need it. Jim, thank you. Oh, one more thing.
Final thing I'll say is, one thing that I see on social media lots of time, people, and it's not just Royal Marines, it's veterans in general, and serving guys, who quite often quote, "There's nothing out there for the lads." Well, there's loads out there for the lads. It's knowing where to look. And if you're a bootneck, it's really simple. Just get in touch with the RMA, the Romneys Charity.
Jim, thank you. Appreciate your time, mate. This for me is I'm a little bit passionate about this, about spreading the word, because I know as well as you know how many people are out there that need the support. Thank you for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mark. Enjoyed that. Thank you.
I'm going to go around and speak to as many members of the staff here as I can to let everybody know all the diverse nature of what we do and the people that we have that can help. Pam's next. Pam's our alcohol awareness. Is that an official title?
She's a mental health nurse, trained mental health nurse, but she's an alcohol specialist and a substance misuse specialist.
So I'm going to speak to Pam as the next podcast to get out the word about what she does for anyone that might need that help. But guys, like I said, the key message is, if you need it, if you know anyone else that needs a bit of support, a bit of help, get in contact. Well, there you go. That was RMA, the Royal Marine Charity's Transition Support Officer, former Royal Marine Jim Morris, telling you all a little bit about what it is that he does now working for the charity. Now, I think if you can summarise all of that in a quick 15-second elevator pitch, I think I would say, if there is any member of the Royal Marines family, serving, retired, or a member of the core family, the wider core family, that needs help in any way, shape or form, call the Royal Marines Charity. That's it, summarised in a 15-second pitch. If there's support that you need for anything at all, just call RMA, the Royal Marines Charity. Now, another thing Jim asked me to quickly mention, which we forgot to talk about on air, was a thing called Commando Connect. Now, currently, Commando Connect is held at 30 Commando, Stonehouse Barracks in Plymouth. It is not a charity initiative. It is an initiative of the unit of 30 Commando. And essentially, on the last Friday of every month, the Officers' Mess will host the event, and it is where serving and retired Royal Marines come together to connect or to reconnect, just have a bacon butty, grab a wet, and effectively just see what happens. There are no sales pitches, there are no hard sales, no presentations, none of that usual stuff at a networking event. It is just guys getting together to meet, spin ditch, chew the fat, and funnily enough, a lot of the time at little events like that and unofficial events with no agenda, a lot of good stuff happens. Now, I'll post on all our social media channels very regularly when these events come up. If you can get to them, please do. And if you think somebody you know could benefit from coming along to them, please let them know about the event. Guys, thank you, as always, for your support, for your sharing of this podcast, for your tagging of people who need to know what it is we're doing into all these posts. I really, really appreciate it. Until the next time, Mark out.